Picture this for a moment. A French Navy helicopter slices through the Mediterranean sky. Below it, an aging oil tanker cuts slowly through dark water. Seconds later, Commandos drop from the helicopter onto the deck. The ship's name, the Grinch. And inside its massive steel hull sits something extremely valuable to the Kremlin: 750,000 barrels of Russian crude oil, the lifeblood of Vladimir Putin's war machine. What happened next sent shockwaves straight to Moscow. But here's the thing. That dramatic seizure on January 22nd, 2026, wasn't actually the most important event of that week. Because while the world focused on the tanker, something even bigger was unfolding behind the scenes, something that could fundamentally reshape the intelligence balance of the entire Ukraine war. France didn't just intercept a Russian oil tanker. France quietly replaced the United States as Ukraine's single most important military intelligence partner. And that development changes everything. Stay with us, because today we're unpacking both of these stories in full. We'll explain why Vladimir Putin suddenly has two very serious new problems, why France has emerged as Europe's most consequential power in this war, and why, despite months of brutal fighting, Ukraine's position may actually be stronger today than it has been in months. Welcome back to World Brief Dailies. If you're new here, this is where we break down the real mechanics of modern warfare, the strategic logic behind global conflicts, and the power dynamics shaping the world's biggest geopolitical battles. If that sounds like something you want more of, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive like this. Now, let's begin. Putin's unexpected new enemy. Vladimir Putin has no shortage of problems. His invasion of Ukraine has dragged on far longer than the Kremlin ever expected. The Western world has united against him. Sanctions continue to tighten, and Russia's economy, despite state propaganda, is under enormous pressure. But almost no one expected France, of all countries, to become one of his most effective adversaries. And the remarkable part? France did it without firing a single shot. No missiles, no troops, no battlefield deployment. Instead, Paris struck Russia where it hurts the most: its wallet and its intelligence blind spots. Let's start with the tanker. The seizure of the Grinch. On January 22nd, 2026, according to reporting by one BBC News, and confirmed by the French military, the French Navy launched a bold maritime operation in the Alboran Sea. This is the narrow stretch of the western Mediterranean between East Spain and Morocco, and in a strategic gateway between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean. The target was a tanker named the Grinch. The vessel was sailing under the flag of Comoros, carrying Russian crude oil loaded at Murmansk, Russia's Arctic port. But the Grinch was no ordinary tanker. According to the maritime executive, the ship had a troubling history. Built in Taxonfori, registered through a Shell Corporation in the Marshall Islands, and operating with no valid inspection since December 2023. Its classification certificate had expired, its safety documentation was incomplete, and its legal status was murky at best. More importantly, the ship had already been sanctioned by multiple governments, and the United States sanctioned it in January 2025. The European Union followed in February, and the United Kingdom added it in July. Canada and Switzerland soon followed. In short, the Grinch had absolutely no business sailing freely through international waters. And yet, there it was, transporting oil worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The boarding operation. Stopping it required a coordinated military operation. A French naval vessel shadowed the tanker. Two military helicopters approached from above. Then came the moment captured in dramatic footage released by the French military. Commandos fast-roped directly onto the deck. Within minutes, the ship was under French control. Naval personnel inspected the vessel's documentation. Their suspicions were confirmed. The ship's unflagged registry was fraudulent. Under international maritime law, that meant something extremely important. The vessel was effectively stateless. And stateless ships can legally be boarded. French President Emmanuel Macron announced the operation on social media that same morning. "We will not tolerate violations," Macron wrote. This morning, the French Navy boarded an oil tanker subject to international sanctions and suspected of flying a false flag. He emphasized that the operation was conducted in full compliance with international law. The tanker was diverted. A judicial investigation was opened, but France didn't act alone. Britain's role. Behind the scenes, the United Kingdom played a crucial supporting role. According to Chopped Navy Lookout and LBC, the Royal Navy patrol vessel HMS Dagger Chai tracked the Grinch as it passed through the Strait of Gibraltar. That narrow channel is one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. It connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean. Once the tanker crossed into the Alboran Sea, the French Navy was waiting. Britain provided tracking support. France executed the interception. This cooperation wasn't a one-off operation. Earlier that same month, British forces helped the United States intercept another sanctioned tanker in the North Atlantic. That ship had led American pursuers on a hundreds-mile chase between Scotland and Iceland. Eventually, it was stopped. The message from these operations is unmistakable. The pressure on Russia's shadow fleet is increasing. What happened to the ship? After the boarding, the Grinch was diverted to Marseille-Fos, one of France's major ports. According to maritime safety authorities, the captain, about 58-year-old Indian national Faris, was detained. The rest of the crew remained on board under supervision. French prosecutors opened a criminal investigation. And then something surprising happened. After nearly 4 weeks in custody, the ship's owners admitted wrongdoing and paid millions of euros in penalties. France's foreign minister summarized the result perfectly. Circumventing European sanctions comes at a price. But the story does not end with a single tanker, because behind this operation lies a much bigger strategic campaign. Russia's shadow fleet. Russia has built an enormous shadow fleet to bypass sanctions. According to Thierry Lloyd's List Intelligence, that fleet now includes roughly 400 oil tankers. Many are aging vessels, poorly maintained, owned through shell companies, registered under obscure flags. They exist for one reason: to keep Russian oil flowing despite Western sanctions. And Putin has invested heavily in it. Estimates suggest Russia spent $14 billion assembling this fleet. Why? Because oil revenue fuels Russia's war. Without those billions flowing in, sustaining military spending becomes far more difficult. But here's the problem for Moscow: that fleet is now under attack. A growing campaign. The United States alone seized 7 shadow fleet tankers between December 2025 and January 2026. Ukraine has struck Russian tankers in the Black Sea. Multiple ships have been damaged or disabled. Each interception sends a message. Every tanker now carries risk. Every voyage becomes more dangerous. Insurance companies hesitate. Shipping companies reconsider. The economic ecosystem that keeps Russia's oil flowing becomes harder to maintain. And France has now joined that campaign in a major way. The real game changer, but as dramatic as the tanker seizure was, it was not the most important development of the week. That happened January 15th, 2026. At an Air Force base in southern France, Emmanuel Macron made a statement that stunned intelligence communities around the world. He revealed something extraordinary. A year ago, Ukraine depended almost entirely on American military intelligence. Today, 2/3 of Ukraine's battlefield intelligence comes from France. 2/3. That revelation represents one of the quietest but most dramatic shifts of the entire war. And it has enormous implications for Ukraine, for Russia, for NATO, and for Europe itself. The satellite network behind it. France's intelligence capability rests on an advanced network of non-military reconnaissance satellites. At the center of it is a system called CSO, Composante Spatiale Optique. 3 powerful satellites orbit the Earth. Each plays a different role. CSO-1 scans large areas of terrain. CSO-2 captures extremely high-resolution imagery. CSO-3 increases revisit frequency, allowing rapid updates on moving targets. These satellites can identify tanks, artillery batteries, aircraft, missile systems. They can even distinguish real equipment from decoys. This capability is invaluable on a battlefield where deception is common, and it gives Ukraine something priceless: real-time intelligence. Signals intelligence. France also operates Ceres satellites, designed for electronic surveillance. These satellites detect radio emissions. If Russian forces transmit orders or coordinate artillery strikes, French satellites can locate them. That information can then be used to guide precision drone strikes or missile attacks. It's an extraordinary capability, but it also serves a deeper strategic purpose. Strategic independence. For decades, Europe depended heavily on the United States for intelligence. Now France is proving something different. Europe can operate independently. France is building what Macron calls high strategic autonomy. And Ukraine is the proving ground. Even if American political winds shift, even if intelligence sharing from Washington changes, Ukraine now has an alternative: French satellites orbiting on hundreds of kilometers above the battlefield. For Putin, this is a nightmare scenario because it means the intelligence advantage Ukraine relies on no longer depends entirely on Washington. What comes next? The tanker seizure was a warning. France intends to push for new laws allowing longer detention of shadow fleet vessels. If those laws pass, the next seized tanker may not be released. It may be confiscated entirely, and that could fundamentally change the economics of Russia's oil exports. For now, the Grinch has left French custody, but hundreds of other shadow fleet tankers are still at sea, and France is watching. If you want to stay ahead of these developments, if you want analysis that goes beyond the headlines, then BCC News is the place to be. Subscribe now, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who wants to understand how the balance of this war is quietly shifting. Because over the last few weeks, something important has changed. France has made sure of that, and we will keep you updated every step of the way. Thanks for watching.